Welcome back to We Still Like Each Other, the podcast. I'm Travis.
And I'm Stephanie.
And this is the podcast where we show that the honeymoon stage can last forever.
Forever and ever.
Hi, my love.
Hey, Daddy.
We're back.
We're back.
2 in a row.
Mm-hmm. It took a little extra work to get here today.
Yeah. Y'all gonna get this a little late, but y'all gonna get it. How was your week?
My week was kind of a roller coaster. Like Monday through Thursday was like grind time, homeschooling. The days flew by. I feel like you and I had a little bit of a rough patch. Friday, Saturday. We're okay today.
Yeah.
No, we were always okay. But, you know, we're kind of facing some stuff and having tough conversations. We're okay. We love each other. We want to be together. We're still happy. We still like each other.
Yeah,
but,
I think that's always the misconception about having those really tough conversations. It's like, although they have the potential to be
toxic or bad.
I was going to say marriage ending.
Okay.
They do have that potential, but I think the fact that we're having the communication or those conversations, then, you know, we're doing the work where it doesn't have to go that route.
Gotcha.
Maybe one day once we're like really healed from it, we could talk about it.
Yeah, it's still fresh and not 100% resolved, I guess.
Yeah.
This was the first time, like, it's not the first time we've had this conversation, but this is the first time that after it, I was feeling like I needed more. Like, I'm like, I don't know why I feel so, like, not satisfied with the ending of this conversation. Like, I need some closure. But we're working through it.
For sure.
How was your week?
It was a good week. It went by pretty fast in terms of work. This week made me super thankful. Although I wish I was a remote worker 24 or 5 days a week, it made me grateful for the one day that I do have because in New York City, they were going through it with the rain.
Yeah. On Friday. You work from home there.
So I was home like waking up 15 minutes before I needed to be online and coworkers and friends were going through it
in the city. Yeah.
And then the commute home was hell for them. So I feel for them. But then I was like, oh, thank you. Because it would have sucked trying to get home. Yeah.
And then me being home all week with the kids, I look forward to you getting home. So had you been in the city and it would have been like, I'm not going to get home till 8, 9 o'clock at night, I would have been stressed.
I'm going to hitch a ride with these people heading to
Nah. So thankfully you were home.
Yeah.
Before we get into the topics, I wanted to talk a little bit about like some stuff in the media that has happened over this week. So we are going to talk a little bit about Love is Blind. So if you haven't seen it, we are going to have a little bit of spoilers.
Fast forward a little bit,
yeah. But you wanted to bring something up from one of the podcasts that you listen to.
Yeah, so Shannon Sharp has a podcast called Club Shay Shay.
Do you listen to that, or do you listen to another podcast that referenced that?
I've just seen it on social media.
Okay.
But another podcast that I do listen to did reference it. But it's literally everywhere. Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah. So Shannon Sharp has a podcast, Club Shay Shay, and he had a guest, Brittany Renner, on it. I don't know how you would describe her in terms of celebrity. I guess she's just like an influencer.
Yeah, she's an influencer. She's known for like dating like athletes.
She's dated like Colin Kaepernick even. She's written a book about celebrities that she's dated. So she's pretty known. But she was on his podcast and just divulged the information of how many partners she had. And it's 35. And Shannon Sharp, I think it was a little theatrical, but he was like, oh my God, 35. He had to take a shot of liquor.
He took a couple shots.
Yeah. So it got me thinking about to an old conversation we have, the body count.
Yeah. That's one of our episodes, right?
Yeah. What's your body count?
Okay.
And I rewatched the episode and I feel like we covered it in terms of like how we feel about it. But it was surprising for me how the internet took that, right? Here you have a 31-year-old semi-famous person who says she has 35 bodies and people are like falling out of their seats. And I'm thinking, oh, that's low. Like,
especially because people talk about her as if she's like
some hoe,
this super You know, the term hoe, I could reclaim that shit. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying
someone who's super promiscuous and sleeps around a lot. And 35 for a 31-year-old woman who isn't in a long-term relationship, like, that's not a lot. And she's beautiful and gorgeous. Like, I'm sure she got DMs full if she wanted.
Taking out the celebrity.
Yeah.
Just being beautiful.
Yeah.
She's low. And I don't know how I feel about the type of person that's a big deal for. I've told you about like my ignorant thoughts as far as like feeling like I wish no one ever had you before me. And I say that in jest, maybe a little truth, but it's not anything. I hope I've never made you feel a way about it. And
I feel like for you is more so like, we know we're meant to be, like it feels so right. Like I wish we met sooner. Like we kind of have those conversations, but then we also remember like, no, we met when we were supposed to. Everything happens in due time. But I get what you're saying. I never felt away.
So yeah, I just quickly wanted to say like anyone who clowning I don't care if her number was double that. Like clowning people for their body count is whack. As long as she's been safe and honest.
And it's with consent, nothing crazy. Like, do what you want.
Go ham.
Yeah.
What was that movie? Most likely her number's like rule of 3. Like anything a man tells you, you divide by 3. And a woman tells you, you multiply by 3.
You multiply by 3. No. I also think like 35 at 31 years old. Let's say she's been having sex since like 16. When you do the math, that's less than like 3 people a year. And if you're not in a long-term relationship, that's not a lot. Like for me, I've had the same dick for 9 years, but that's because I'm in a long-term relationship. But if you think about not being in a long-term relationship and dating and stuff, sex is part of dating and it's going to happen. It's not that big a deal.
Bunch of squares.
But yeah. Anyway, she also, I feel like, is making a living off of this whole like being able to go on shows and talk about sex and talk about men, and kind of like she puts herself in a position for these bro podcasters to like clown her.
Yeah, I don't know. She's very articulate and intelligent, and I feel like she kind of gets the host with like the low hanging fruit, but then once they're in, they're like she kind of flips the script, which I can respect. Yeah,
like, but it's like she intentionally set her body count. She knew the buzz it would get. Even us mentioning it on this podcast, people who never heard of her might be inclined to like go look this up, find out what she's about. But yeah, in other media, Love is Blind.
It's back.
Is back,
and we can't get enough.
We binged it. It's been a busy week, so we literally binged it like Thursday night.
Yeah. That's how you know it's good too, because we don't binge everything. And I just felt the need to be caught up before social media could ruin it, even though I haven't told you. But, well, I'll tell you this. Like that's the rough part about dropping reality shows, right? Because people are living these lives and there are people around them who aren't a part of it, but they see people out in the world, right? So they're like, oh, I may have saw someone. Oh. Or I may have rented an apartment to someone, but alone. And it's like...
Oh, so people are like putting spoilers online. Thank you for not telling me. Yeah. I like to be surprised. If you're putting me onto a show, don't give me too many details, because then I'm going to be annoyed. Like, I don't like
I ain't going to say nothing, but someone important dies.
Oh, I hate that. Don't tell me that. But... I wanted to talk about 2 couples. One of them was Uchee and Lydia. Well, they're not a couple, but they were a couple before the show. I want to talk about Lydia because she's someone who initially is so easy to hate. Like, I even caught myself being like, ugh, she's so annoying. Like, without her even really doing anything. Like, before the weird shit even started to pop up, just her personality is like a little loud, over the top. And then I felt bad. I'm like, let me give this girl a chance. Like, it's just who she is. She's a freaking geologist. She's smart as hell. Like, she got on the show, whatever. So keep that in mind. She is a little easy to hate just off the bat. Then we come to find out that she was dating someone from the show, but before the show. And it got sketchy because of Aaliyah. You want to tell who Aaliyah is?
So Aaliyah is one of the contestants, a part of the experiment. And she was, I guess, connecting the most with this guy,
Uchee, who's Lydia's ex from the real world.
So, but now in the pods, the girls are all in the living quarters together, and Lydia and Aaliyah are like really close. And I remember even before we found out, I literally paused and I turned to Steph and I go, isn't it so interesting how close women can be? Because they were like not only emotionally close, but physically
like hugging, being just very close, holding hands.
And I was like, isn't it interesting how close women can be? And then we joked about like, imagine the guys' pods, like if they were this close, we would be
the
clowning.
internet would be like, what the fuck?
Exactly. And then, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes later.
Yeah, because they didn't announce that Lydia and Uchee dated at first. We didn't know that. They kind of kept that secret. And they're showing us Aaliyah and Uche's relationship grow, and they're showing us Aaliyah and Lydia's relationship grow, and we're like, oh my God, they're really close, like that's so sweet. But then it got a little weird.
So then Lydia starts divulging information about Uchee, like in the real world, like, oh girl, wait till you see his house or his dog, or oh my God, he has a Tesla. And you could just see Aaliyah on the inside just dying.
Because she's like, I don't want to know all of this.
Yeah, why are you giving me all this information? And then there's something that happened that they haven't shown us. I don't know if they ever will. Maybe they just don't want to like reinforce the fighting.
They get into an argument.
And
Aaliyah
leaves abruptly.
Yeah. But what was interesting about that situation is before they revealed that Lydia and Uchee dated, there was a moment where Uchee gets upset because Aaliyah admits that she did cheat on her ex-boyfriend 2.5 years ago, and he basically judges her for it. Everyone thinks Lydia's the villain, but Uchee is toxic, and I think he's a narcissist.
Really quick on that, like, how do you feel about, I don't know, someone's past in terms of how it shows up in the present? Like
the cheating?
The cheating, or just doing anything negative. Like, let's say, I don't know, I used to look through phones, or I've cheated in the past. Do you think it shows up in present?
Possibly. Habits are hard to break, right? If it's something you're so used to, if it helps your insecurity to like snoop around. So yeah, so you have a right to be concerned about a new partner's previous patterns, right?
But not how he did it.
He basically tried to make her feel terrible. He was just like judging her, and he said 2.5 years ago isn't that long ago. Even though she said it was the only time she had ever cheated, and it was only one time, and she talked about how the relationship wasn't even working. He just made her feel really bad, and I didn't like it. It felt like his intent was to hurt her feelings, Because even if it was a deal breaker for him, he could have let her know that without trying to break her down. It felt like it was personal. Like if he got cheated on, I'm like, is he triggered right now? Like, did something happen to him? So I didn't like that. He was really nasty to her. And I feel like it was making me think of a person who he would hold that against her in the future. Like he had a little like gas to throw at a fire at any moment. And I didn't like that.
Yeah, I think that's always the fear in like giving a lot of old information to a new partner. Because like when you meet someone, you just want to tell, especially if you're vibing with someone, you want to tell them everything, right? But then there's that fear, and unfortunately it came true for her, is like them using it against you. And I have a feeling like if they did go the distance, it wouldn't have been the last time she heard about it.
No, absolutely not. He's strange. Yeah, so I didn't like that. I also didn't like how, so yeah, Lydia becomes the villain. Because it's like, you knew, you got close to Aaliyah, y'all were so close. And there was a point when she goes, I knew he would react that way. Me and you are the same.
It was creepy.
It was creepy, but at the time you're like, what is she saying? That sounds kind of weird, but you don't think anything of it. Then when it's revealed, you're like, oh shit.
Yep.
But yeah, then when they had a fight, I guess Lydia and Aaliyah have a fight. Aaliyah goes home. Again, Uchee talks to her crazy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, how are you? Which I get. Why did she leave without talking to him? I question that too. But then the way he was like, I don't even want to talk to her. I don't want her number. Like, and also comparing the stress of the pods and living with your ex to marriage.
He basically says like, there's going to be tough times during marriage. And if this is how you're going to show up for this, then what should I expect once we're actually married? So he was pretty much done with her at that point.
But that's not fair, because in a marriage, you don't have to live with your partner's ex.
Yeah.
And it's also cameras, TV, and you got super close with this person who now you find out slept with the guy you want to marry. It's not comparable. Yes, there are going to be tough times in marriages that you can't run away from. Comparing what was going down in the pods to that, no. And I feel like, again, he was just finding ways to bash her.
Yeah, his expectations in terms of the experiment, I think, were not realistic. Mm-hmm. So it's no surprise that later on down the timeline, we find out more information about him, and he's not so noble.
Yeah, so basically, we think Lydia's the villain, but I think it's really him.
Yeah, and I'm noticing, like, even in his retelling of stories to Aaliyah in regards to Lydia, it's very, like, his retelling is just like she's the villain.
Yeah, and when you hear only his side, it sounds crazy. Like, she was stalking my friends, looking at their story. She took a picture outside of my house. That sounds all scary. But if you think about it, it's like, well, maybe you were out. She couldn't reach you. Maybe she was looking at a story. Like, there might be an explanation. Also, maybe she was in the neighborhood and took a picture and was like, I see you. And it was flirty.
It was cute. Or that was her intent. But then, whatever, he took it the wrong way. But I just think everything he said, there's like another way it can be interpreted, which doesn't make her seem like this batshit crazy Latina.
Yeah, exactly. But because she's a Latina and she's fiery and she's loud, and like I said, we already find her a little easy to hate. It could be easy for us to be like, oh my God, what the hell, right? When he showed up to that rooftop party and was confronting her about this old stuff, like, why? You didn't bring it up in the pods. You didn't want to date her. Why bring it up? Yeah. But I want to move on from Uchee. I guess my point is pay attention to his actions, and maybe Lydia isn't the villain. I did want to talk about Taylor and JP also.
I was rooting for you.
I was rooting for them. I thought they were going to like make it. They were the first couple to get engaged. And then they just didn't vibe when they met. Yeah.
So I, off bat, thought maybe she wasn't going to find him as attractive.
Yeah.
And everything she was showing us in terms of her actions were that that was a non-factor for her. Mm-hmm. She did make a mention about his teeth. Mm-hmm. But I think it's like, all right, like that's a fact, right? His teeth aren't as nice. Mm-hmm. And he does have a slight gap, but it never came up again. What was a major issue for her was just the communication skills were lacking.
Yeah.
We're no longer in the pods. We're no longer separated by walls. And there's so much silence between us in these conversations, and it's awkward.
And you could tell that he's naturally more of an introverted person, and maybe the pods did help him open up because there's nothing else. We can't hold hands, we can't sit next to each other, we can't share a meal. Literally the only thing we can do is speak, right? So I think it helped him open up a little bit more, and now in the real world it was a little harder for him.
Yeah, so she brought it to his attention numerous times, and I guess on the last time that it was brought up, it turned into an argument. Mm-hmm. And his reason for why he's not as, I guess, open when it comes to conversation was that when he first met her, she just appeared fake, referring to her makeup, referring to the lashes, maybe her outfit, I don't know, but more so focusing on makeup. He's like, I like this version of you. And he's referring to her with
natural,
a clean
makeup.
face. Mm-hmm. And there was that term.
So this is the thing. I felt bad because I kind of understood what he was trying to say.
I didn't.
But he fucked up, right? The reason, so JP, think of this like country boy who, isn't too worried about fashion or style. Like he wears USA shirts. I was going to say
everything's red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue, like redneck shit, like simple. And then when Taylor came out, it was like glam. Like think the Kardashians level makeup, huge false lashes. She has the platinum blonde hair. It was probably intimidating. In his mind, the picture of this cute Southern belle that he connected with, it didn't match. And I can get that. And it could be intimidating. Mm-hmm. If he's a firefighter and she's a teacher. So, people have false ideas of what a teacher looks like.
Yeah.
So he was probably thinking he was going to meet someone who was more low key in
reserved.
in terms of her style, her fashion. So I could get how that could like shock him. But then he fucked up because he kind of was making it seem like, I don't ever want you to wear makeup. Don't ever wear it again. So it was giving controlling and weird.
And also, she brought out the point that since the reveal, I haven't had makeup on. Mm-hmm. So I felt like he was harping on something. Like he was just attaching why he was being this way to something that
he wasn't taking up personal accountability for his lack of communication.
If you've been on this vacation for however many days and she's been clean faced for this whole time, then if anything, that should open you up.
Mm-hmm. Even if you were initially shocked and it didn't match what you were expecting, now you've seen her just being regular.
Do you think he self-sabotaged? Like in a sense that he saw that there was or he felt like he was defeated and then
he definitely was defeated at that point because she was making it clear that she kind of was done. And she had brought it up multiple times. So I think at that point, he was like grasping for straws and trying to make it seem like, well, it's not my fault. You're fake as fuck. But you were talking about the term that we saw on TikTok, an invisible army. Was that what it was?
I sent it to you. I didn't.
I think it was invisible army. So basically he says to her, why are you so upset about this makeup thing? 99% of women would love if their partner said, I prefer you with no makeup. Mm-hmm. So he kind of was generalizing what most women would think to kind of make her feel worse, to kind of make it seem like, oh, you should be thankful. You should be so grateful that I want you to not wear makeup, which apparently is like a manipulative kind of tactic in an argument.
Can you think of another example of someone using that invisible army?
Yeah, like, oh, you know how many women wish that they were able to like, you know, stay home or something, or if you make a complaint about something, then you have to put yourself in everybody else's shoes, you know? What's another example?
I don't know, but it's just like, basically like I took a poll, an imaginary poll, and everyone else feels the same way as me. Yeah. So now I got backup. What are you going to say to my...
I bet you if I called my friends right now, they will all agree with me.
Exactly.
So it kind of puts this false sense of like, I'm right, you're wrong, just because you're pretending that all these people agree with you, even though there's no proof of that.
Exactly.
But all right, let's get into did you know or maybe not. And we had an argument. Not an argument. It wasn't an argument, but we had a conversation about did you know and the direction it's gonna take.
Okay, so I'll let y'all in a little on the inside of our production, right? Whenever I come my did you knows, I think a lot of people enjoy them. They're not anything, I feel like they're pretty lighthearted in terms of the information. We talk about it and we move on. I don't think, very rarely have we harped on it. Where I find them is just random websites.
You'll do a quick Google search.
Like, I'll just be like, fun facts about relationships, marriages, or women, or men, da-da-da-da. And websites are usually, I guess, sketchy in terms of like the names. Who did this? Who did this survey? Blah.
And I'm very like, what do you mean? Like, where did they get this information from? Who did they survey? Like, I want to know the research methods before we like blurt out this information.
So like even today's is from a site called facts.net. No shade across facts.net. I don't know, but I personally have never heard of them.
Yeah, it was like a website that had a lot of ads running through it. And I just felt like,
So our dilemma was, Steph is like, no, do some more research and put something well curated together. And I'm just like, well, no.
I didn't want something curated because you're making it seem like research. Like I wanted you to find 6 sources. What I meant was what you do find, it's from a credible source. So if it's the New York Times, if it's the Washington Post, if it's even a book written by a single psychologist or a single therapist, they cite millions of sources. So I kind of take their writing, like I trust what they're saying.
And my thing is like, all right, that sounds good and all, but I want this to be lighthearted. I want to be able to fit it into a soundbite. I don't want to, at that point, it might as well be a topic. So we came to a compromise, and we're going to change up what we think we're going to change up the did you know, maybe even the name. And it's just going to be like funny, weird, quote unquote.
I want it to be more clear that it's like satire, or that we're kind of bringing to light the phony research that's online about relationships, about marriage, because I felt like did you know sounded like we were trying to give
factual
things,
or like we really researched
evidence-based information, and it kind of made me feel like a fraud. So we're kind of changing it up.
So if you have any names for the segment rather than did you know, maybe like, I don't know, weird shit on the internet or something. But that's going to be the direction moving forward, because what Steph wants, I don't got the time for. So, did you know? Did you know, or something else?
Top this segment.
Couples begin sharing personalities the longer they stay together. There's always that pivotal moment in the relationship when a couple is suddenly acting like each other. A team of psychologists from Hong Kong proved in an experiment confirming that personality does have an effect on how similar a couple looks. If the couple is of similar age, the same level of attractiveness, and with the same interests, it's only a matter of time before they switch or adapt to each other's personalities.
Okay.
So we've been together 9 years. You just said, same penis for 9 years. Is there anything you feel like you've adapted from my personality, or maybe my style, or anything?
I wouldn't say that I adapted your personality in terms of like acting the way you act, but I feel like you've influenced how I've kind of changed and molded my behavior. Like, I'm still me, but I know that I'm a better version of me because of your influence, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
I feel like maybe I watch a lot more superhero movies than I ever did before. But I feel like that's also just a way for me to share in your interests, and I actually enjoy them. Like, I look forward to doing it and going to the movies and watching the new movies or whatever. And I'm not miserable or bored, and I'm not like, oh, I don't get why he likes this. It kind of became our interest.
Yeah.
Do you feel you've picked up any of my personality traits?
Very similar to what you said. I wouldn't say personality traits. I mean, I feel like I kind of throw Spanish words in.
Get out of here.
You don't think? I'd be like, ja.
I don't speak to you in Spanish, though, so I don't know where you picked that up from.
Maybe that's me just being,
I don't even know.
Mocking you?
Yeah, exactly.
Personality. I don't know. I mean, like, similar to what you said, like, I feel like you've definitely pushed me in a positive direction in terms of my personality now. Like, you've altered the personality from day one to now. But
I kind of help you improve your style.
Well, I think you kind of jabbed at me the other day. What did you say? Like, yeah, go wear black and gray. I forgot why.
I don't remember why I said that. But even we were having a conversation, I think, with my brother, and he said, your style has changed since being with Stephanie.
Didn't
Anthony say that?
Oh, yes, he did. Motherfucker.
You've never had bad style. You were just very like simple, monotone, which is not bad. A lot of people like that, especially now with the tans and browns and beige. A lot of people are like, that's all they wear.
Trendsetter.
But you always wore like black and gray, and then you would have like a nice shoe. But you were always just like black, gray, like you had like 4 different gray sweatpants, hoodies, black t-shirts, gray t-shirts. It was just like those colors. You might have had a little bit of red. And I think I kind of pushed you to like add color, do different things that you probably would have been too afraid to try in the past.
I definitely agree. And I'm also thankful, especially when it comes to work.
Yeah.
Because I'll be, putting some outfits together. And the only reason I'm even able to put them together is because you purchased them from me.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, this will be cute for work for Travis.
So yeah, I guess fashion.
And some people probably think I dress crazy, but I feel like I'm fun with my fashion. Like I feel
like you take chances.
I take chances with color and things, and I try not to wear what everybody wears all the time. Like I've been in my later 20s, 30s, just avoiding trends. Like if something's super trendy, I try not to get it, and only because of waste. Because if something's super trendy one year, it's most likely out of style the next, and then it feels like a waste. So I kind of like lean towards timeless pieces.
I guess that's why you like thrifting too.
Yeah. So even like this shirt, it's like very 80s, but the colors are fall. So it's like I'm in seasonal trends colors wise, but I didn't go on Shein or like Zara and buy this. Like, this is a secondhand shirt.
I think that's what happens mostly in terms of couples, is fashion, right? So, I know you said you were into sneakers, but being with me, like, I had the resources to get like the better sneakers in terms of like rarity. So of course it's like, oh, Steph's a sneaker, but you always knew.
I'm from the Bronx. Like, when I got my first paychecks, I was buying sneakers. Like, I was always into sneakers, but I feel like when I got with you, I would have like that trendy new, what's coming out next. But I feel like even with that, I always paired it with clothes that most people weren't really pairing it with.
Yeah. I saw something, what's her name? Chloe? Which one's married to Travis Barker? Is that Chloe or Courtney?
Courtney.
They always say Courtney basically dresses like whoever she's dating.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's natural.
Yeah, it is. Like, you kind of, like, Kim went through a whole transition in her fashion when she was married to Kanye, and that's natural.
So I think with this, whatever we're calling this segment, the takeaway is that probably the most common thing is always going to be fashion.
Yeah. And in terms of personality, I think there might be something to that too, the longer you're with someone, because we're not the same people we were when I married you at 25 years old. So throughout that time, I'm learning, I'm evolving, I'm changing my perspective on certain things, and we're together. So you're going to kind of have similar transitions in your outlook on life, and even becoming parents and having multiple kids and moving from one state to another. There's going to be things that we kind of evolve with at the same time.
I think that's why it's always impressive when couples are together for a long period of time, because there's so much evolution that happens and so much of having to like relearning to like your partner and love your partner, right? Because you're in different parts of your life. So when you hear about these marriages that they've been together like 40 years, but they're genuinely happy, you think to yourself like, wow, they had to like go through so many iterations of their relationship
and they all were compatible. So because if you think about it, in 10 years, you're not the same person, year 1, year 10. Within those 10 years, you change. So, and if you remain with the person for 10 years, that means whoever they changed to be in those 10 years was compatible with you. And I think we touched on us kind of having some difficult conversations as of late. And I think that's sort of a part of what we're going through, making sure we're growing together and not growing apart, because, maybe certain expectations that weren't there a couple of years ago are there now.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of us is like seeing more into the future than the other. And it's like, we need to kind of be on the same page during this evolution, during this phase of our lives, so that we aren't growing apart. So yeah. See, your facts.net thing led to a good conversation. Again, I'm not against it. I just want it to be more clear that it's not science-based.
Yeah. Hong Kong psychologist.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's amazing psychologists in Hong Kong. But I also feel like with that, some things get lost in translation, right? Mm-hmm. Because this research wasn't written in English, So sometimes you got to think like, And you also got to think of cultural differences that might influence that. So maybe that's true for couples in Hong Kong, but maybe not American couples.
I thought about a name for this segment.
What?
Facts.Travis.
Okay, I'll sit on it.
It's a working title. Before we move on, I want y'all listening and watching, y'all know we weren't going to keep going without asking y'all to do some work.
What's the work?
If you're on YouTube, take a minute, like this video, leave us a comment, let us know what you're thinking about the conversation so far. If for some reason you're not subscribed, hit that bell. It helps us. Every bit helps. The like, the comment, the bell, all that stuff. So, it's literally all we need from you. We don't need no money, although it'll be nice. But
We have merch, we have stickers, we have stuff on WeStillLikeEachOther.com.
She's like, I said, we don't need no money, but buy something.
Yeah. I'm a stay-at-home mom, honey. And these school supplies for Eli are expensive, man.
And also, if you're listening, take a minute on your whatever podcast app you're on. Leave us a review, 5 stars, anything less. We will get you back next week. We'll make sure it's a 5. But you guys have been killing the reviews on Apple and Spotify. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Let's get back to our show. We're not done. We just had a little intermission.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about some stuff that kind of went down. Last week was a very big recap week. We talked a lot about what we've been going through. And after the fact, not only did I feel like a little bit of a vulnerability hangover from sharing so much personal information, but I was a little bit disappointed in myself.
Okay. This is breaking news.
I was a little disappointed in myself only because I felt like in me wanting to share the truth and talk my shit and call out the negativity, it kind of made it seem like that's what I'm mostly getting when it's not true. There's so many people who genuinely show me so much love, support, encouragement, rooting me on. Even strangers online sending me, if they see a reel about homeschool, they'll send it to me. If they see a resource that I could benefit from, they send it to me. Someone literally just sent me a link about Whole Foods. They do cooking classes for kids. So it's not all negative, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Brittany, when I posted about needing art supplies, she sent me an order from Target with canvases and paintbrushes and watercolors. My friend Ashley says once a month, I want to take Eli on a field trip. There are people who genuinely support us, and I should be focusing on that.
I think that's the problem in the world in general, right? The negativity is always louder. It's why, you have trolls under celebrities' comments, saying the nastiest things because they know a fan saying something like, I'm your biggest fan, you've changed my life, isn't going to catch the attention. I hope you do X, Y, and Z to yourself, you know? So it's unfortunate that the negativity is always louder, but I think, yes, this is a very important moment for you to focus on the positivity.
Absolutely. And the reason I was disappointed in myself over it is because I read this book, The Mastery of Self, this summer, and I felt like I didn't master myself. It was that moment where I allowed the negativity to trigger me and to bring out a side of me that I don't like. Granted, this is a podcast and I will talk about the negatives and the positives, but I feel like I want to have balance. And when I talk about the negative things, it's more so to show people I can relate and this happens, but I let it frustrate me. I was heated. I was hot. And one of the things in this book, I'm actually going to read a small little quote that it kind of helps you face those moments when you get triggered. He says, when fear overtakes you and sparks an emotional reaction, your attachments and domestications are now running the show. Becoming a master of self is about noticing when you begin to have an emotional reaction and asking yourself immediately, what am I afraid of? The quicker you can identify and release the fear, the faster you become regrounded in authentic self. So you ask yourself, what are you afraid of, Stephanie? Why was that triggering you? And the truth is I'm afraid of all the negativity people are saying or the doubts people have becoming true.
Or influencing you.
Or people are saying, is that going to be too much for you to have 3 kids at home, homeschool? That's a genuine fear. Of course, it might be too much, maybe. So I'm afraid of that becoming a reality. So when people say it, it triggers me.
And also our words have power or hold weight, right? And it can influence things. It's why we have you speak positive affirmations to yourself and you put that positivity out in the world. So if you have someone saying are you sure? Or can you do this? It's comes across as negativity, even though maybe for them it's just genuine concern, right? And these are questions that are valid questions, right? But in a moment where all you want to surround yourself is with positivity.
Yeah. And I also feel they're only valid questions if you have that type of relationship with the person, right?
Yeah.
Travis and I, we watch TV. We're here. We're talking about Uchee and Lydia from Love is Blind. We have no idea who they are, and we're basing opinions on it. But we're not in their face questioning them. We're not in their Facebook comments or, Instagram comments, like asking them things because we don't know them, right? When you have a negative thought about what anyone's doing, something I've been challenging myself to do is to correct it and give people the benefit of the doubt. So even if I see someone doing something that seems weird to me and I speak it in that negative language, I correct myself. And I say, you know what? Maybe it makes sense for their situation. Try that. It'll like help you like not be negative and be in people's business in a way that you shouldn't be.
Yeah, I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. I think it's helped me get through life for the most part until someone shows me otherwise with their actions.
Yeah. Before this past episode, I would ask myself, one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of when I get triggered and when I'm a version of myself that I don't like is when it comes to Eli and my patients in homeschool, right? You know, growing up, getting physically abused when you got in trouble, getting hit, getting yelled at, it takes a lot of work to unlearn that. So although I don't hit him ever, I do sometimes still yell in ways that I'm not proud of or in moments that were not necessary. Like I could have handled it in a different way. So when I asked myself, like, what am I afraid of that I reacted that way? I'm afraid of failing. If Eli doesn't do well, that means I failed. So then when he isn't listening or doesn't follow a direction the way that I want him to, is that fear of like, oh, everything everyone's saying is true. This is too hard. And then it triggers me to like act in a way that I'm not proud of. Also, we get raised being told, like, if you see a white kid acting up in the grocery store, it's like, oh, it's because he doesn't get hit. That's white people shit, right? Like you get told like basically their parent failed as a parent because their child isn't obedient.
I wish you would.
Exactly. So the minute if Eli is like questioning me or doesn't follow what I say immediately, I get triggered because to me, in my subconscious, it means I failed as a parent. He has no respect for me.
Back talk.
Exactly. Even though it's not true. And in my conscious, I know that's not true. These things are embedded behaviors that are hard to unlearn and take a lot of intentionality, right?
I would even go as far as saying it's hard coded in us for generations, right? There's some truth to if this is being done for your mother did it, her mother did it, her mother did it, her mother did it. You are trying to undo generations of trauma.
So even when people make the comments about how girls are going to be so difficult, I'm scared of that because of how I was raised and what I remember being like as a teenager. But then it's like, I got to remember, like, let's say she's just like me. She isn't just like me. I'm the eldest of 5 kids.
She's going to be the youngest of 3.
She's going to be the youngest of 3. So even just that, we're not in the same exact environment.
It would be impossible to replicate your childhood.
You know what I'm saying? So even if she is just like me, it's like, I want to know what she'll be like then, living this different life that I'm providing for her, you know?
It's almost like you get to do it over.
Exactly. But then that's also something tricky because she might be nothing like me and I can't force that on her. And a lot of times I've seen that happen, that we want our kids to be just like us. Like, oh, they're going to like the same things that I like or be into the same fashion that I like. Oh, I hope she doesn't wear black and gray. You know what I'm saying? So keeping that in mind as well. But just I when I reflected on the episode, it's like, I'm glad I brought up these things because so many people can relate, but I need to not let it trigger me so much and realize that also the reason people do that, for the most part, isn't necessarily to trigger me or to like say something negative to me. That's what's encoded in their brains. They're just repeating and regurgitating the social norms that they've grown up with.
Yep. Literally every time I tell someone about the homeschooling, they always cycle through like the same 3 questions. Oh, what about socialization? What about this? Oh, wait, isn't she pregnant? It's literally this. And I'm just like, all right, let me get my speech out. All right, and this is how we feel about this, and Finn.
But But yeah, so as I'm reading this book, I'm very much reading it from the perspective of I'm too reactive. Like I get loud, I yell, I get frustrated, and I speak in ways that like I'm not proud of, right? But that's my perspective when I read it. So I was curious to know, like, how would you interpret something like this? Like, what's a behavior you do that's kind of second nature that you want to change?
I don't feel like I have any behavior that's like, I don't know, that you can say is like, is negative in a sense. Or no, it's negative for me.
But it's not overt and like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you would say, oh, Travis is stressed out or someone angered him, but he's holding that in, right? But that could be negative.
Yeah.
And I do that a lot. I hold back. And it's gotten to the point where I've hold back so much professionally, romantically, with family, that sometimes I'll even have like a physical discomfort from doing it, like literal chest pains. And I think for a long time, I viewed it as a strength, and I think it can be. There's a strength in holding back on people because, you know, if we lived in a world where people were just super reactive, it would be chaos. So I do see it as a strength, but also when the time calls for it, like when I'm in a safe place, like with my wife or with family, or when I am justified, maybe professionally.
Or when you need to speak up for yourself.
Yeah. There are moments where I wish I did have the skills to open up in that way.
So let me ask you then, in those moments when you don't speak up, I guess it's probably different professionally, with family, with me. What are you afraid of that keeps you from speaking up?
Just like going against the status quo, like just not, I think by keeping it in, like, let's say, for instance, between us, it'll be peaceful if I just kind of like ride this wave without saying anything that could disrupt it. Eventually the water's going to settle and we're going to be okay. Yeah. Or at least that's the hopes. Same thing professionally. Like there's times where I've known something is wrong, and just because I don't want to be the one who like led the, I don't want to be the one that led the revolution.
Yeah.
I just kind of like sit back and watch it happen. And it's kind of like, even saying it out loud, it just sounds weak.
And I will say in our relationship, it doesn't work in the way that you want it to work, right? Because you might not say anything or like tell me, okay, yes, sure. And it's like a Band-Aid on something, but it doesn't actually fix anything long term. And we kind of always end up having to like pull it out of you. Like in a way, it's like a dig, like I'm digging it out and breaking down your walls for you to like express it. And when you finally do, I feel like that's always the best outcome in our relationship.
It always is. I feel for you because I know how draining that could be, right? Like I know you wish it didn't take you like literally having to like chisel at my walls in order for me to, before you see the first spurt of water, right? Which usually equates to me crying because I'm just like unraveling something like really packed
I love
in.
you.
Yeah, it's tough. I said this recently to you. It's like being 35 and still having to like unlearn some things is like kind of embarrassing because I wish I had these thoughts about my personality a lot sooner, like 10 years ago. Like I wish I was doing the work to be a better husband, father, human. So it's tough that being 35, and although I'm still young and I have a lot of life to live, you know, the clock is ticking in the sense that like, you got people depending on you to like get your shit together. And
to you, I've told you, like there's some people who never ever reach that point. Their personality, they feel like it was created in childhood and then that's it. This is how I am. This is take it or leave it. So you should be proud of yourself for still being open to doing the work. I feel like for you, it might have even been slower because it wasn't so obvious. You know, like it's obvious that I need to not be screaming at people and so loud and reactive with things. It's not as obvious that like you need to speak up because no one challenges that. The kid who is quiet and reserved and keeps everything in is perfect. It's easy.
Praised.
It's praised. So if you've been praised for holding things in, it's going to take a lot more work and like self-reflection before you realize like, okay, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
So you should be proud of yourself anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of went over the place, but this reminded me also in thinking about this other book I read this summer called Atomic Habits. I read it because I'm the type of person that like I start working out and I'll go ham for like 4 to 6 weeks and then I stop. Or I'll meal prep and cook dinner every night for like a month and then we start ordering takeout. Mm-hmm. There's so many different little habits that I've been wanting to stick to kind of improve the quality of our life. So that's why I read it. But I went back to this chapter because it kind of reminded me of this about the role that family and friends play in shaping our habits. So I'm going to read a little bit from it because it just makes sense. I have to read some of it. So it says, humans are herd animals. We want to fit in, to bond with others, and to earn the respect and approval of our peers. Such inclinations are essential to our survival. For most of our evolutionary history, our ancestors lived in tribes. Becoming separated from the tribe, or worse, being cast out, was a death sentence. So me doing this homeschool thing, I'm like the lone wolf. Mm. I don't have any close friends, any family members, any cousins, aunts, anyone I went to college with that I'm friends with that is doing it. So it's like I'm going against the grain. So when people make those comments, it invokes that fear because it's like, I'm alone in this.
You're ostracized.
I'm ostracized. Exactly. And then he says, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. You know where that's from?
No.
Game of Thrones.
Oh.
He also says, as Charles Darwin noted, who is known as like the father of evolution, and y'all know me, I love to talk about evolution. In the long history of humankind, those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. So it's so easy to just go along with what everyone else is doing.
Status quo.
The status quo. And that could come with gender norms, things we talk about when we talk about kids and what you're having, a boy or a girl, all those things, just agreeing and nodding is an evolutionary habit. So you know how you say, I'm 35 and I'm just now learning. No, think about literally thousands and thousands of years of human evolution and you're trying to unlearn that. It's hard.
Yeah.
We don't choose, I'm reading again. We don't choose our earliest habits. We imitate them. We follow the script handed down by our friends, our family, our church or school, or local community and society at large. In many ways, these social norms are invisible rules that guide your behavior each day. You're always keeping them in mind, even if they're not at the top of your mind. Often you follow the habits of your culture without thinking, without questioning, and sometimes without remembering. Most of the time, going along with the group does not feel like a burden. It's easy.
Oh man, you're speaking to the choir. I think that's a lot of my struggle in my adulthood, right? Going against the pack. Mm-hmm. And me and you have had so many conversations in terms of how it's so heavy on me, feeling ostracized and feeling the lone wolf because I'm not going with the status quo. And it's tough. It's tough even when you know you're doing something that's going to benefit you in the long term. It's kind of like working out, right? Like you're not going to do one. You're not going to do one workout and then see a six pack, right? It's going to take months, if not years, for you to really see some results. But you got to know that doing the quote unquote right thing is going to lead to that positive.
But it's also, that reminds me of how your friends and family influence you, right? Because if the way you connect with your friends and family is over drinking alcohol, is over eating these huge meals that are unnecessary, going to bars and eating food, but you have a personal goal of reducing your alcohol intake because you're trying to get abs and it's not good for you, or reducing how much carbs and dairy you're taking in. It's hard because what are you going to do when it's Thanksgiving dinner and you tell your mom, like, I don't want mac and cheese?
Yeah.
Or you go to your boy's birthday party and you're like, I'm not drinking.
Or even money habits.
Ooh, that's a whole nother thing.
Like you literally, if in order to be like on the right path, however you deem that to be, like sometimes you may have to like cut people off, right? Because if you have people who literally don't give a fuck about, budgeting or saving or, maybe purchasing something the right way, right? Because there's ways anyone could put it on a card, but can you take the time to save? Yeah. And that's still something I'm struggling with to this day. And it's something that have generations of people doing it this way. Why wouldn't I just,
And it's also, if you keep doing it, you feel like you fit in, right? You don't feel ostracized because the people you're used to feeling a sense of community with, that's what they do. So then when you don't, because like, okay, I'm going to take a step back. For me and my happiness, I need to reduce debt. I need to reduce alcohol. I need to reduce whatever type of food. But then that, in making that just decision, you're isolating yourself. And that's hard. And it's not only hard because, I don't like to feel lonely. There's people who say, I take myself on dates. Like, I don't care. That's bullshit. It's hard. Because for our evolutionary advancement, we needed people. Before we had all this advanced technology, when you think it's only in the recent past 100 years, if that, we needed people. We needed to be relational, social people. It's very hard to be like, I'm on my own. That's why this whole mothering shit, like motherhood, parenthood was never intended to be a solo mission. It was in community before. So when people judge moms for feeling tired or feeling overwhelmed, it's because it was never meant to be this way. We didn't evolve to like have to praise single moms. Like I want to praise single moms. Like, I'm glad they've been able to do it, but that just sucks. Yeah. We need to be like, why the fuck are there so many single moms?
That's where the term "it takes a village" comes from, right?
Yeah. And so many of us are like, what village? Like, I'm lucky to have you. It's hard, but I don't even know where I was going with this, but when you do anything for yourself, your authentic self, things that this new version of you, like we said, you evolve over time, it does make you feel a little isolated, and it's hard.
Do you think your authentic self can change? Or is that...
No.
Like in terms of like what you value? Mm-hmm. Because it's not to say that everyone who drinks alcohol or, I don't know, eats a lot of food or does crazy shopping. What if they're able to, right? Like what if they have a balance?
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It all depends on what you value, and it changes. But the thing you have to ask yourself is, do I really value that? Or have I been conditioned by the people around me, the family around me, the behaviors that I've been rewarded for throughout my life, that now I think that's what I truly value? Like, are you really the super, like, hold everything in person, or were you praised for it throughout your childhood? So then you kind of reinforce that behavior and now it's a habit. Yeah. Do I really love having every single Jordan sneaker? Or did I grow up in the hood where there was a scarcity mentality, and the minute you had a couple dollars, you went and bought shoes, and then when you bought those shoes, everybody thought you was cool, and the kids who didn't have the shoes, they were getting bullied, so now you're like, I need the shoes. So is it something you deeply, truly value? You have this sense of artistic style, which there are some people, or were you conditioned to believe that that's what you truly value? So it's not that your authentic self can change. I just think we have to really do some dig deep to really find out what's an authentic part of your personality and what's something you've just been conditioned to believe.
If these mics weren't so expensive, I'd tell you to drop it.
But yeah, so in terms of your question, like, can your authentic self change? I think we're always uncovering who our authentic self is.
So maybe it's you're discovering new parts of what it means for you to be authentic.
Like, it's there. And there's some parts of us that are developed by our society that we can never truly let go of, right? Because we do have to live in society at large. So there's certain parts that we just have to do. Like, realistically, do I want you to go to work? And no, I want you to be a stay-at-home dad with me, but we can't do that because we got to pay rent, we got to eat. So there's certain parts of following the status quo that we all have to do. There's a base layer of that is just, we have to.
Yeah.
But being able to like step back and enjoy like who you are at your core is so important. And a lot of that revolves around shaping who your circle is, right? So part of Atomic Habits is like, if I want to be this person who works out regularly, I need friends who work out regularly.
Yeah. And it also challenges you to actually discover those parts of you. Because like I've said before, at this big age of 35, I'm still peeling back layers to see who is my authentic self.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not who I've thought it is.
Yeah. It changes. You know, like, I don't know if now I could have a friend that, like, if we're hanging out with our kids, they start smacking their kid around in front of me. Like, that would make me deeply uncomfortable. And it would make me, like, probably more than likely not want to hang out anymore. Because it makes me uncomfortable. Like, it just doesn't feel right. Then it's like, how do I explain that to my kid? So, like, what the reasons I don't hit my kids is because that's not an effective means of communication. They're smaller than you. It is, like, abusive to do it. And I don't want my kids to think that that's a way that they should handle problems. So if just because I'm not hitting them, if they're seeing other people get hit, they're still picking up that behavior.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it happens. Like, I stopped drinking. That doesn't mean I don't want to be around drinkers, but I don't want to be around someone who's like shit-faced, throwing up in the toilet every single time we meet. You know, there's a balance. There's levels to it. But yeah.
I digress.
I wanted to quickly, if you're watching on YouTube, over my right shoulder, you could kind of see a few photos of our family. Like, you might see the bottom of it.
Oh, I could put a better picture here.
So Travis will insert a photo. So if you are in the New York City area,
I say tri-state.
Well, yeah, tri-state area. Our friend Tabitha, who took our fall photos the past 2 years, she will be in New York on October 8th and October 14th. And she does have a couple slots available for fall family photos. I think you should definitely check out her website, tabfieldsphotography.com, and use the contact page. Don't let another fall season pass and you're like, oh, I wish I took nice photos with my family. It could be just you and your partner. It doesn't have to be with kids. It could be maternity. But yeah, don't let the fall go by without getting your fall photos. All right. Moving on to our last topic.
Misogyny.
So this topic is also influenced by last week. Last week was a lot of heavy reflecting, but we posted a clip on TikTok that is doing pretty well. If you didn't know, we're able to post longer clips on TikTok, which we've been testing out with this drop. And it created a lot of conversation around the negative comments people get when they're having a girl. And I didn't even realize, I didn't use this terminology about how it just shows us, like, this is showing you how misogyny appears in day-to-day life. Like, the reason there's so many negative comments around having a girl is because our society as a whole hates women.
It's like
Travis is like,
it's like I refuse to accept that as the truth, but then there's so much data or so many instances that kind of reinforces that.
Yeah, someone said that they went to a gender reveal that the dad literally cried because they were having a girl. Like, it's never that serious. It's embarrassing. Like, I get gender disappointment. Like, I feel like that's a very real emotion to go through, right? Especially if you've had multiple. Like if you're on baby number 5 and you're like, I just really want a boy. That's understandable, right? Gender disappointment. But if it's more so because girls are sassy, or she's going to have an attitude, or I'm going to need a shotgun, or she might get pregnant, it's like, that's misogyny.
Yeah. I remember, rest in peace, Kobe. Every time he was on a talk show, they always talked about how like he never had a boy. Mm-hmm. And even his his last one was another girl. I think that made 4, right? Mm-hmm. But he's what made it cool to be dad of girls. That's where the whole girl dad came from. I don't know. It's sad that we live in this world, and I've openly said I do not envy you being a woman. Like, it's crazy the shit you guys
and
have.
There's some cultures that literally will kill girls just so they could try and have boys. Like, this shit is embedded in our fucking evolution. And I think even like in China, there was like that rule that you could only have 2 kids or something like that. So if you had more girls, they would like kill them literally so they could try for a boy, because you needed a boy to like pass on the legacy or whatever.
Crazy.
There was one comment that was like, ooh, this is spicy. And it also called me out a little bit, because it said people like boys because they're easier to neglect. And I was like, ooh, people not ready to have this conversation. And I was ready to talk shit, but I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of guilty of this myself.
Yes. So, when we first got together, a lot of your time spent was working 1, 2, shit, sometimes 3 jobs, right?
And I was in school.
And I know on multiple occasions I've heard this come out your mouth where you're like, thank God Eli is a boy, because then I feel more comfortable leaving him with my mom or with his uncle or with so-and-so. And you said that on numerous occasions, I remember. So hearing this or reading this comment was just like, wow, do we really feel that way about boys? We can neglect
boys. Like, we allow them to raise themselves. Like, even when you think about when boys are allowed to hang out outside with their friends versus girls, we let boys go out younger. Like, we think they're men. Or we think like they're less prone to being sexually assaulted, right? We're like, oh, it's a boy, like he'll be fine. Boys get sexually assaulted too, and we have to be just as careful with our boys as with our girls.
Or abducted.
Yeah. And I think boys, because of like, I feel like now digital era is crazy, so everybody could get lost in a phone or a thing. But before it was video games, that was like the first like grasp all your attention and could suck you in for hours. It'd probably be so easy for a parent to just let their boy sit in their room 5-6 hours a day, and that's neglect, but they might be praised for it. Oh, if it was a girl, she would want to be out here asking me questions, talking to me in my way. But a boy, I could put a video game in his hand and like it'd be easy. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think even thinking back to my childhood, and I know there's so much information that we have now that our parents didn't have. So, I give my parents grace, but I was the kid that could stay in his room for hours. And, it's shown up in a lot of my personality as an adult. Like, it's still something that gives me comfort. And I'm sure, there would be parts of me that, I enjoy playing video games, even if it wasn't something I did for hours on end as a child. But, when you think about prioritizing things that are important, like schoolwork or progressing in the workforce, I had no motivation to do that, because what brought me comfort was like, all right, do I have the resources to maintain this level of happiness? Yes. All right, I'm okay.
What level of happiness? What do you mean?
For example, in my early 20s, if I had a computer, electricity, a room to call my own, that was content. That was content. That was happiness, right? And it probably was the source of my lack of motivation for anything else. And it's still something I'm struggling with, that lack of motivation for better, for more. And, part of rediscovering who I am at 35 is like, all right, well, it's not all about you anymore. You have children.
I was gonna say the way I see that manifesting in your adulthood is like you were that kid that was comfortable just playing video games in the room all day. Eli isn't, you know, like he has a lot of energy and a lot of this. So sometimes I feel like you're like, if I was Eli, I'd be so happy. I have a 55-inch TV. I have a PlayStation. I have this in my room. I'm like, that was you. Eli is a different kid. Yeah. He needs quality time. He needs physical activity. And you have to parent in a way that you weren't for him because he isn't you.
Yeah.
Another comment that people were talking about in this video on TikTok was about how we comment on girls' weight. And we have a big baby, right? River. And we comment on it all the time. And I'm like, why is it that I know for a fact if anybody made a comment on my daughter's weight, I'm going to be upset. But when we do it with River, it's kind of like cute and it's jokey. Like, haha. But then I started to think about that and really understand why that is. And it's like when we talk about boys being big, we're like, that's a strength. They're going to be strong. They could play football. Whereas when we talk about girls, it's like, oh, you got to be careful what she's eating or, you know, have to cover her up.
She won't be suited to date.
Yeah, or people hypersexualize girls when they're bigger, when they're younger, you know, because their legs are thicker or something, like weird as fuck. So that's something we have to kind of be aware of and undo and unlearn when we make comments about kids' bodies. Like, we literally need to stop doing that shit.
Or, you know, I'd say there's even a problem with how much we love like a chunky baby, right? Well, you hear that a lot. Chunky baby, oh, so cute, so cute. But then now, let's say that child is growing up and still a little heavier, then all of a sudden it's not so cute. It's not, you know, it's not a chunky baby anymore. It's like, oh, there's level for concern here.
Yeah.
Which could be the case.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's not. We know that.
I feel like what we need to do in general is just have a healthier relationship with food, right? Like sometimes I watch TikToks of like reorganizing the pantry, reorganizing the fridge. Like I love organizational stuff. Like it's calming for me. It gives me ideas. Like I love keeping my house a certain way. But sometimes you see the food that these people are packing up for their kids. And I'm like, no wonder everybody's complaining that food's so expensive. It's like, you're buying all junk. All that junk is expensive and it doesn't fill you up. It's like temporary energy that wastes really quick, so you're eating more.
Yeah.
So I think we need a better relationship with food, like not being so strict, like no sugar, no candy, because then I've seen that other extreme where some parents are like ridiculous, like their kids at a birthday party with pizza and soda and they're like, no, I brought him a box of carrots. Like, don't be an ass. But we need to have a balance, and I think as a society in general, we need to have a better relationship with food. What?
The whole bringing carrots.
Right? And you love carrots. I literally pack carrots in Travis' bag. We have baby carrots in the fridge. I put carrots in River's thing. But I'm not going to go to a kid's party and then tell my kid they can't have candy.
Carrot pop.
You know, like, no. So a balance. And I'm not perfect at it. And I have Eli loves sugar. And I always say that, like, we kind of say that so much. And it's like, are we creating
I don't think
sugar addiction in him since we're saying it all the time?
This ain't one of those things where we're like speaking. This ain't one of those things where we're speaking into fruition. Like he legit loves it. And I think that.
But we're not helping by always saying that.
But I also don't think we're super strict with it.
No, but I'm saying in terms of like, we always talk about how he loves candy. How he's even like your parents gave him the nickname Snack Pack. Like I feel like we're like reinforcing it to be a part of like his personality versus like realistically we're evolutionarily developed to like sweets because they're higher in calories. So back when food was more scarce, you would like anything sweet you found because it gave you more energy, right? So we like sweets. Like that's just, and things that were bitter might be poisonous. So that's why we don't really like vegetables. We kind of gotta grow to like vegetables. But it's just weird how we're so reluctant to like vegetables, but we're so ready to like alcohol that's literally poison in your mouth. But okay, anyway. How did we get here? Talking about comments with kids' weight.
Yeah.
And then relationship with food. All right. The last thing I want to talk about is how people say girls are expensive. Have you heard that?
Shit.
What?
Y'all are.
Okay. Why do you think so?
No. I don't think there's anything specific to women or girls being expensive. I think if you break us down to like our basic needs and our basic selves, though, right? Like you go back to hunter gatherer, nurturer, and all that stuff. If you wanted that woman, you had to show her you had the skills that would be able to provide and protect, right?
Yeah.
You come with the biggest, I don't know,
deer.
But then if another guy came with a bigger deer, she may be like, I'm sorry, Turok, I'm going with Nook. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's something there. It's just we're not out here in the wild hunting, but now it shows up in our finances.
Yeah, but I feel like the only thing I could think of is like when girls get their periods, boys don't have the equivalent, right? So that's like you need feminine products. But when you think about other expenses of kids, like boys like PlayStations, those are expensive, you know? Then I think about depending on the girl's interest, like if she wants her hair done and nails done, then that becomes like a different thing. But then my sister was telling me that she put her son in football and like a helmet's like $175, and that's just the helmet and all the other protective gear that he's gonna outgrow every season. Then they're more expensive in that end. So it's just, I feel like the narrative that we believe that girls are more expensive is just an example of misogyny manifested. Like we're just finding a way to say that girls are more difficult.
Yeah, I don't think there's, I can't see there being data that, a girl's just more expensive. I think, advertising is probably aimed towards women.
Which is misogyny.
And also,
because they want to keep us broke.
And also men, we may not buy it as often things, but the things we do buy are expensive fuck.
Yeah.
So although my $600 PlayStation is going to keep me a little happier long term, it's no different than if you're out here spending
$30
every day, or you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
We just need to cut this shit out, treat everyone equal.
You heard of the pink tax?
Yes.
Misogyny.
I have heard of it. It's basically like make anything that's pink, but the counterpart for the man is like less, right? So like, let's say a blue shaver might $2, and a pink one's like $5.
Yeah, just because it's pink, but it does the same thing.
I use your shaver.
We use the same deodorant, the same razor.
Y'all not ready for that conversation. These men out here be doing the most.
Yeah, but it's literally the same thing. There's certain products that like it's the same thing. Like I wouldn't use the male version of deodorant because
I'm talking about. Oh, you're talking about the metal?
No, not the metal. Just the scent. The male scented deodorants are like insane.
And that's the conversation I'm talking about. Like men be out here smelling all types of crazy, fucking too many sprays of cologne, weird ass deodorants, lotions. It's just bad. Like. I don't know. I can't speak for all women, or you can't speak for all women, but
for me, that's another. I feel like we've been conditioned to think like cologne smells good. I like you can smell good, but when I think about from an evolutionary perspective, I like to smell your natural smell. Like I want to know what you smell like. Like your skin has a certain scent. Even if you're clean, you're bathed, but even our soap is unscented. Sensitive skin soap. Our lotion is unscented. I just got like a cocoa buttery one, but it's very light. It's not like super smell, and that's my personal preference.
Even myself, when we're going out and let's say it's a special occasion, I'll take my cologne, spray it on my pointer finger, and dab a corner of my neck.
Yeah.
And that's like, oh shit.
When I went to Puerto Rico, I bought like those little travel size,
like a roll-on.
It's like a roll-on. It sprays, but it's like that same size. And I bought it from Target, and I feel like I might have used it a couple of times, and now it's there. And it's just like I never. What I smell like is my hair, like my hair products.
Yeah, that's always been, at least for me, like a biggest turn off / on is like smelling weird. And weird not always necessarily meaning like odor, but like just different combinations of perfumes that are just like too strong. There's nothing worse than like when you still smell like someone after a hug. I hate that.
I hate when my kids smell like someone's cologne.
Ugh.
Like they hug them and then all their perfume colognes on my kid.
Just do a little less. I'm not saying, I love, there's certain colognes and perfumes that I think smell great. Just a little less. Just a little less, y'all.
Yeah. And there's some natural, like light ones. Like I've smelled people and be like, what is that? But most of the time it's like a body oil, a body lotion, something light, fresh. But yeah, I don't know how we got here.
Went off on a tangent.
Yeah, but we're all done.
If you made it this far, please don't forget to like, leave a comment, subscribe, and leave us those reviews.
Yeah.
My love.
Daddy.
Do you still like me?
I still like you.
You want to ask me?
Do you still like me, Daddy? Was I always asking you before?
I think you had started to ask me.
Do you still like me?
Ask,
okay. I guess. Oh, yeah, people are going to come for me. But I guess I should, right?
It matters.
It does.
I still like you.
I love you, Daddy.
Love you more.
Bye.